Hi, it's Dwyer. GamblersAdvisory.com, a free site. Also, dwyercrime.blog, a free site. Today is December 5th, 2024. Remember, the opinion you should follow should be your own. Just consider this video to be a second opinion from a complete stranger online. Now, there are different levels of assassination as I see it, right? Doing true crime videos. The best assassinations are the assassinations where somebody else is framed. You actually have a patsy. You have evidence that points to a patsy, right? There's a truth lurking in the background that people are afraid to discuss, because, of course, that truth would trigger other questions. That truth might have security implications. There's another kind of assassination where it's unclear whether it is an assassination, right? This is what's happening these days, where people die and it looks like they've died in a car crash. Or it looks like the person who may have been drugged, who may have been placed on the roof, who may have been lured to the roof of a building, falls off the building. And of course, then the story becomes, was it a suicide? Right? Did the person intend to fall off the building? You know, the people around the person look like they're just randomly assembled. The cops can't even track the people who are around the person at the time of the death, when, of course, it's possible that one of the people around the person on the roof of the building pushed the person off the building, bumped the person off the building, or at least it looks like a bump. Then you have assassinations like this one of the United Healthcare CEO, Brian Thompson. Right, folks? While the press right now is all excited because the gun that was used in the assassination was exotic, and while the idea of a shooter being on foot in Midtown Manhattan, brazenly shooting a guy, right, outside on the sidewalk, sounds advanced. As I sit here today on December 5th, 2024, I have little doubt that the cops are going to catch the killer because of the mistakes he made, and they are several. Right? First, he checks into a hostel. Right? Why would you do that? You know, it's a hostel in Manhattan, right? Understand, I believe savvy killers would know how to travel in the tri-state area, right? The assassination of Malcolm X, for example, at the Autobahn. We now know who did it. It wasn't the people who were rotting in prison. And we understand they were from out of town and they just bounce into Manhattan. Then they get out of Manhattan. Right here, this guy makes the mistake of checking into a youth hostel, which is a very bad mistake for a host of reasons. The first is, as he's checking in, he's asked to lower his mask, right? This is a post-COVID era. A lot of people have, things up around their mouths. We assume that they might be health conscious. Well, here the guy's checking into the hostel, and of course, it's a hostel. It's not a living situation that allows for confidentiality. So they ask him to lower his mask. He actually lowers his mask. We have the surveillance film. We now have his face, right? There's no question that this is a white guy. Right? You look at his face and There's certain idiosyncrasies on his face, the way his nose looks. It doesn't look to me like this is a guy wearing a disguise under the mask. It doesn't look to me like this guy actually anticipated being asked to lower his mask. So folks, we have his face. We know that he checked in with a fake ID. It's even worse than that. He had roommates at the hostel. I imagine there should be no doubt as to his height, his weight. This isn't someone in the crowd who people aren't looking at before somebody falls off a building. No, this is somebody who stayed with two other roommates, who'd be able to say he's 6'1", all the way down the line. Let's talk about another mistake he made. This is a whopper to me. It's early in the morning when the shooting takes place, before the shooting takes place. He's hungry. Right now, let me just say this casually. If he was better prepared, he would already have the food he's going to eat that morning, wouldn't he? Right? He would have a Cliff Bar or a, whatever. Superfood bar or what have you. So that he could just get in to the murder scene, get out, leave. Right? No, this guy is hungry. So he goes to a Starbucks a few blocks away from the murder scene. We know he ordered a coffee, bought a water, and bought 2 power bars. The police believe that they found the wrappers to the power bars as well as the coffee cup in the garbage that the guy tossed them in after he had breakfast moments before the shooting. Now this is a split here. This is one of two things. There is a famous case. I'm not going to name the case. I don't want to be sued for defamation. But let's just say somebody died, and then the forensics found foreign DNA in the pants of the female victim. Right now, I believe that that foreign DNA is planted by the actual killer. Right? All you'd have to do is have DNA from somebody else. Right? It could be someone you haven't met and don't know. You could go into a public bathroom and wipe a urinal. I know it sounds macabre. And then, of course, plant that DNA at the murder scene. Now, this is either that, where the guy is at the Starbucks, at least somebody's at the Starbucks, looking like the guy perhaps, and plants DNA that will not be able to be traced back to the actual killer. Now, either this is a diversionary tactic of the highest order, or this is simply some young killer making mistakes on the day of the murder. Right? If it's not a conspiracy, if the actual shooter is the one at the Starbucks, then whatever gun he used, this killing is not well thought out. He's going to get busted. All they have to do is match him to the DNA that's on the stuff that they pulled out of the garbage. Right? Understand the world we live in. You have people these days picking up shell casings at murder scenes because they don't want the shells traced back to their murder weapon. You have people in police interrogation smoking cigarettes, and then they make sure they leave with the butts. Right here, this killer throws the stuff he bought at Starbucks into a garbage. Right, folks, I'm telling you, several killers. The Golden Gate rapist killer was busted when they tracked him and he ate food at a food court and threw, his garbage into the garbage. Here, this alleged killer did that. The only question is this a conspiracy? Did somebody else working in cahoots with the killer do it? Right? If this is high level, then the two players don't know each other. Right? It's structured in a way where, you have this role, go to the Starbucks, buy the power bars, toss them in the garbage. Somebody else has the role of actually shooting the guy. I don't think this is that level of crime. Let me also point out, too, and here again, there's a split. The guy's clothing is too distinctive. Right? If I'm in Manhattan and I see some guy wearing a lot of black, looking like a ninja, he's going to stand out. Far more than if I see someone looking like they're just a regular person going to work. Right here, this guy is wearing a lot of black. Right? He's traceable in the crowd. Also, it doesn't look like this guy had a change of clothing. So, 15 minutes after the shooting, right, which of course is caught on film. Why? Because the shooting takes place right by the Hilton Hotel. You have to assume that in these, big cities, big commercial hotels, there's going to be a police presence. There are going to be surveillance cameras. Well, just understand, 15 minutes after the shooting, the cops have a video of someone who they believe is the shooter, right, wearing pretty much the same clothes that are in the surveillance video, riding a bike away from Central Park. Right, folks, this is too distinctive. You could imagine as NYPD starts asking people along the route and stuff like that whether they saw a guy wearing what looks like a ninja outfit somewhat, right? A lot of black and stuff like that. Between 6 and 7 a.m. in the morning, there are going to be a lot of people who are going to say, yeah, I remember that guy. Right? They might not be able to say so if this 6'1" white guy looked generic. Let me also say this too. And I understand there's an emotional content involved. Everyone wants to prove a point, make a statement. I get it. But from this seat, the top priority should be getting away with murder. Right? If you're going to do this crime, you don't want to do the time. Right? If you don't want to get caught, then don't write on the bullets. Folks, that's foolish. Right? The cops now are looking at the words. At least 3 bullets have a word on them. And they are figuring out that this is these are words used in a 2010 book. Right? They're figuring out the motive for the killing. Might be something related to some protest against healthcare companies and things like that. Right? The killer shouldn't have tipped off the cops. What's the point of this? Right? Maybe this is the whole point of the murder, to stage some protest. But if you want to get away with murder, this is the kind of thing that links you further to the crime. Right? Because now, of course, the cops are pursuing the idea that this is someone who may have had a relative have their request for coverage denied and who may hold a grudge. Well, just understand, if they find someone who has that situation, who they can link to this 2010 book, who also has an interest in firearms, knew about the exotic gun used, and of course has experience writing on metal, right? Writing on, bullets. Well, I'm just telling you, if I'm a juror and I hear all of those links, I'm going to find that to be powerful evidence, particularly if the defendant matches the person seen on the bike 15 minutes after the shooting, matches the person found on tape with his mask lowered at the hostel, right? Matches the person who others saw at the Starbucks that morning, particularly if there's DNA on the garbage that he dumped that matches to him as well, or fingerprints, right? So this is salacious right now. We're all looking at this murder. We're saying, my goodness, right? We're hearing that the guy seemed to know the door that the United Healthcare CEO was going to walk out of, right? That the guy had it planned down to a T. Well, folks, he didn't have it planned enough to not have roommates at his hostel, right? He's wearing a mask. He understood that when he was asked to lower the mask, he couldn't say, no, I'm not lowering my mask. Well, just understand, as I see it, this murder plot fell apart right there, right? He went on and killed the man he was seeking to kill. But just understand, if you have to lower your mask, which you're wearing for a reason, and if when you lower the mask, your face is shown on camera, then the margin of error that you thought you had being masked to do this killing just went out the window. I'm expecting the cops to eventually catch up with this guy. It's just a matter of timing, right? Whether it's tomorrow, whether it's next month, whether it's 3 or 4 months from now, that I can't tell you. But I will say they'll know who it is, right? We're hearing the fingerprint is smudged on some of the items they got out of the garbage. Folks, just the fact that there is a fingerprint shows you that this was not executed perfectly. I'm expecting an arrest. Let me hear from you. I hope you leave your comments in the comment section of this YouTube video. Thanks for stopping by.